Good morning. You might be concerned that the government benefit from all your hard-earned savings and investments and not your family. You might be worried about how complex all the solutions and rules seem to be around inheritance tax. You might be just looking for that local level of face-to-face service. So I'm Richard Higgs from Harold Stevens. We are later life financial planning specialists based right here in West Trim in Bristol. And today I wanted to talk about inheritance tax planning, but in particular the inheritance tax-free ISA, because most of you will have cash ISAs, stocks and shares ISAs, but did you know that when you pass away, those ISAs lose their tax-free status? So effectively when you die, ISAs form part of your estate for inheritance tax purposes, and that might mean that all those years that you saved and invested in what was supposedly a tax-free wrapper becomes taxable at 40% by the family in terms of inheritance tax. So given that the average inheritance tax bill is over £200,000 and the 12-month rolling receipts of inheritance tax are now just over £7.1 billion, I can see why inheritance tax is seen as the most hated tax of all in the UK. But remember, it's just a choice, really. You know, there are things you can do in lifetime to mitigate or even eliminate the inheritance tax payable by your family. And where better to start than the good old-fashioned ISA? As I said, most of you will have cash ISAs and stocks and shares ISAs. So we can convert or switch those ISAs into inheritance tax-free ISAs. So how do we do that? It's by using an exemption called the business relief legislation. So if you invest your ISAs in a portfolio that qualifies for business relief, it means that your ISAs are inheritance tax exempt after just 2 years. So which is obviously a massive benefit for anyone that's got potential inheritance tax issues. So you can get your ISAs completely inheritance tax exempt after 2 years. They would still be retain all your tax allowances, so they'd still be income tax free, capital gains tax free. It's just that they would be inheritance tax free as well after just 2 years. Massive benefits on the timescales. So normally when you're doing inheritance tax planning, you're having to wait over 7 years before any gifts that you make or any trust work that you do becomes effective for inheritance tax purposes. Whereas with inheritance tax-free ISA, as I said, it's just 2 years you have to wait until you get that inheritance tax exemption, which is great for people that are just looking to get things done and dusted quickly, or you may be in later life and kind of looking at 2 years as a more realistic timescale perhaps than 7 years. So really great that you can get your inheritance tax planning done in just 2 years. And remember, it's still your money, it's still your ISA, it's still your investment. It's still available to you to spend money on the grandkids or long-term care in the future. It's still a liquid ISA in that you can just sell the investments at any given time. All the portfolios are on the stock market, so it's all tradable, available to you. You still have access to your ISA. So that's another great benefit, really. And remember, it's simple as well. Most of you will have an ISA, you'll know what an ISA is. There's no complex legal structures or trust arrangements. It's just an ISA that happens to have this inheritance tax-free exemption. And remember, you're investing in UK economy, UK PLC, so you'd be supporting UK companies, UK industries. So that's really great that you can kind of help the country. And it represents an investment opportunity in its own right as well. You know, it's still your investment. You would hope to grow your money more than say a cash ISA, certainly over time, and probably more than a more mainstream ISA. And I'll come onto the investment opportunities by investing in inheritance tax-free ISAs in a moment. So it's an investment in its own right as well. So the main considerations really are that the investment risk. So if you're switching from a cash ISA to an inheritance tax-free ISA, you have to be aware that the portfolio will go up and down in the short term. So you have to be aware of the investment risk, obviously with the hope of the kind of a longer term return. And if you're switching from a more mainstream investment portfolio ISA, it might be that your investment experience might be pretty similar to what you've experienced before, so it might not be quite as big a jump for yourself. In terms of cost, you might be paying slightly higher fund managers charges, purely because this is more of a niche market, so the fund managers have to do a lot more research in terms of business relief exemption, making sure that companies qualify for the business relief right now and also going forward. And it's also a very under-researched area, so there's more research required when looking to invest in these kind of UK smaller companies. So your portfolio within the ISA will qualify for business relief. It will have the potential to grow. So you'll have that inheritance tax exemption after just 2 years. The companies invested in within the portfolios will tend to be on the AIM market, which is the alternative investment market, which is kind of really the stock market that sits below the FTSE 100, FTSE 250. It's just another kind of stock exchange based in London. And it tends to be the market of choice really for UK smaller companies that are faster growing. It's been going since the 1995. But it's grown massively over the last decades, really, especially over the last 10 to 20 years. And so the companies on there are often big, large household names. There's 250 companies now on the alternative investment market with an average market capitalisation of £80 million. So we're not talking about startups here. They're proper big companies, but just with the potential to grow more than kind of the mainstream FTSE 100 companies. And it's really the power of investing in smaller companies gives you that potential growth over time that will probably be a greater growth than your existing investments. Just to throw some accounting statistics out to you. So the earnings per share for growth potential of AIM market companies that qualify for business relief is 8.7% per year compared to 5.7% per year for the wider UK market. So that just shows that the earnings growth potential is greater for UK smaller companies compared to larger companies. That kind of makes sense really. You know, for bigger, larger established companies, it's much more difficult to grow those companies than it is for smaller companies. The return on capital employed statistics are 11.7% for the AIM companies that qualify for business relief compared to 9.7% for the UK wider market. And that's really showing you that smaller companies are much more efficient, more nimble, they're more investable in terms of the company's own finances. And in terms of company debt, AIM market companies that qualify for business relief have debts of an average of 11.7%, but that's compared to the wider market of 19.7%. So UK smaller companies tend to have lower levels of debt held on their balance sheet. So better growth potential, more efficient investment, and less debt held within the UK smaller companies market within these portfolios. So you also have really experienced IHT free ISA fund managers that are able to pick out the best, most profitable companies within the market that offer the best growth potential. And as I said, we have long track records now of performance for these IHT free ISAs. So we can give you all the figures you need to show you that it's nothing to be scared of really. And often there'll be household names included in there. You'll have profitable, big, strong balance sheets within the portfolios. So in fact, 196 companies on the AIM market have profits of over £10 million. So as I say, it's nothing really to be scared of, these investment portfolios. If you're investing anyway, it might be a very similar experience. If you're investing in from cash to these portfolios. It's just to be aware that in the short term, obviously market conditions will dictate the values, but over the longer term, you would expect to see some significant growth in your portfolios. So if you've got inheritance tax issues and you also have ISAs, definitely get in touch for an initial exploratory meeting with ourselves, very relaxed here in the office, where we can explore whether inheritance tax-free ISAs are right for you, or whether indeed there are other options out there for you. It'll also be a good opportunity just to ask about us, about Harold Stevens, to see whether we're the right fit for you as well. We specialise in later life financial planning. We've actually won national awards for the way we deal with those in later life and vulnerable clients. So we'd be delighted to see you, or even your extended family if you think that's appropriate as well. If you have any questions in the meantime, let me know, but we'd be delighted to see you. Just get in touch with Laura in the office and we'll get something arranged. Hope that's been useful. Today's talk on inheritance tax-free ISAs. Be delighted to see you, and we'll see you next time. Okay? See you then. Cheers. Bye.